Welcome, I'm David Vaughn. I'm president of O-Scale Central. This is O-Scale Central Online. It's the January 21, 2024 program. This program is being recorded for later rebroadcast. I think you'll get a message on your screen that says you need to click to agree to be recorded. I want to thank you all for participating in the program. With me on the program is Greg Vigiano, who is the O-Scale Central Online coordinator. He rounds up talent, helps handling distribution of the invitations and working with me on technical issues as well. I thank Greg for his work. O-Scale Central, which presents this program as a service to the scale, is a nonprofit tax-exempt membership organization. We promote O-Scale 2-Rail and we support O-Scale modelers. We maintain a website, oscalecentral.com. I urge you to take a look at it. It has a lot of information on getting started in the scale, deals with frequently asked questions, contains a scale-wide product and service guide, which is searchable and perhaps more importantly is free to use and free to be listed. We also present clinics, display layouts, and show the flag at RPM meets, and MRA conventions and trade shows. We continue to develop new programs, which are exciting. So we're in the early stage right now, developing a library of 3D printing projects that will be available for use by modelers. Under our Vice President, Skylar Shippey, we're putting together a forum for O-Scale 2-Rail train clubs for purposes of giving them places to share information, ask about problems, get suggestions on ways to develop and improve their situations. We're very excited about some of the things that we've got going. We've had an influx of really good volunteers, and as we get more people involved, we are able to do more. We also have a quarterly journal, a monthly newsletter, and are almost there in terms of having a password protected membership directory. And oh yes, we present this show. We do it as a service to the scale. It's free. You do not have to be a member of O-Scale Central to participate. We think it's important that we build a community and share information. But if you like what you see and you believe that promoting O-Scale and helping the modelers in it is important, we hope you'll join us. Again, take a look at oscalecentral.com. Which has, in addition to what I indicated, a calendar of coming O-Scale 2-Rail events. Some of the things we'll be talking about today will touch on upcoming events, and you can get an entire list at oscalecentral.com. You can also get it, by the way, on O-Scale Resource. And Dan Dawdy, who is not only the editor of O-Scale Resource, but our webmaster, is on the program and may be talking about some of those things. It is our custom to go around the room, the virtual room, and do a very brief introduction so that we know who's on the call. And so if connections need to be made later, we have some contacts We've done this various ways, none of which seem to work perfectly, but it's been suggested that everybody's place in the array should be the same. And so we're going to try that, and we're going to use Greg Vigiano as our guinea pig on this. We need 3 quick pieces of information from everybody here, and we'll simply go across the top row and then the second row and the third row and so on, and we'll go left to right. Greg is in the top left. What we need from Greg and everybody else is your name, the railroad or railroads that you model, and where you're from. At the end of the meeting, we may have some good and welfare, and then keep the program open for people who want to have a discussion. This may help us get started. So Greg, if you could be our guinea pig on the going around the room in introductions.
Sure. Greg Vigiano, and as you can see behind me, I'm modeling the Santa Fe in around 1950, starting with the Super Chief as a 1950-51 F7, and I'm in Washington, D.C.
I'm David Vaughn. I live in Clarksville, Maryland. I model the Nickel Plate Road and the Canandaigua Southern in O-Scale 2 rail. Mike Slater.
Mike Slater, Sturtevant, Wisconsin, rubber gauger, model Milwaukee Road, Wisconsin Central, and the Chicago North Shore and Milwaukee Interurban.
Great. Sarah, there you go. You're unmuted.
I'm Sarah Griesenberg from Austria, and I model the Union Pacific.
Eric Peterson, you are also muted.
Eric Peterson from Indiana, model CSX and predecessors, back to steam, and currently experimenting with polymeric sand for scenery.
Thank you. Down to the next row, Dan Dawdy.
My name is Dan Dawdy. I'm from Dwight, Illinois, and I model my own road to keep away the rivet counters.
Thank you. Ken Nesper.
Ken Nesper, Washington, D.C., and I loosely model the Baltimore and Ohio.
Brad.
Brad Cole, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, model the Milwaukee Road, Sioux Line, Chicago Northwestern, a little bit of Wisconsin Central. I'm also the director of the March O-Scale meet.
Brad is a 12-inch to the foot railroad engineer.
That
Jamie.
too.
Jamie Robinson from Turner. I model a small Vermont short line called the West River Railroad in Proto 48.
Great. John?
There's more than one.
Well, this John is really Kathy because it came up on John's old Zoom meeting. I'm in Swiftwater, Pennsylvania. I'm John's sister, and I think I modeled the Chicago Great Western because if I didn't, he would disown me.
All right. John Wubbel?
Yes, I am in Swiftwater, same as my sister Kathy, and it's true, I modeled Chicago Great Western.
Walter?
My name is Walter Horlacher. I'm here in North Florida. I model Milwaukee Road from the 70s. I also have a modular railroad group called the Florida and Southeastern Georgia O-Scalers.
Great. John McInerney.
Okay, my name's John McInerney. I currently live in Central Florida. I'm an expatriate from the Philadelphia area. I model the Pennsylvania Railroad, Santa Fe, and a mix of the UP and Southern Pacific.
Walter, are you and John plugged in, being Florida guys?
Yes.
Oh, yes. He belongs to our group, and we just were in DeLand together. He had an outstanding Cal Zephyr train with a Kleinschmidt drive F units at the head end.
Saw that. Al Askerberg.
Al Askerberg, Columbus, Indiana. I model a fictional short line called the Boyd Northern, and that's it.
Raleigh.
Hi, I'm Raleigh Rice from Norton Shores, Michigan, and I modeled the Grand Trunk Western and C&O Railroad locally.
Very good. Ed Fuller, you're muted.
I'm Ed Fuller from Johnson City, Tennessee. I, as yet, don't have a railroad name. I'm still trying to develop something. I'm thinking of developing a, well, something in between a short line and a little regional, but I haven't had it really developed the railroad yet. I don't have a place to put the layout. I'm still working on it though.
Consider the clinch field. Kent Larson.
I have. I know some people that have worked on the clinch field.
Kent Larson in Belmont, Mass. I call mine the Plum Square and Level Railroad, mostly because I really like to switch cars in and out of industries, and I use Union Pacific equipment.
Outstanding. Skylar.
Skylar Shippey. I'm the Vice President of Oakdale Central. Live in Fenton, Michigan, and very involved with the Detroit Model Railroad Club that's just a few minutes away in Holly. I model the Nickel Plate Road and collect other things I like.
He did not mention he's also president of the Detroit Model Railroad Club. He's more than just a little bit involved. Yes.
I'm very humble.
Rich?
Yeah, Rich Randall. I live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I model the Milwaukee Road at centered at Avery, Idaho, about 1973 with electrics. And I'm working on modules that I would like to display at Timonium, Maryland Great Scale Model Train Shows, and a proposed modular standard.
Right.
Thanks.
And I have Holgi.
Yes, that's me, Olga Remkos. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm model Union Pacific, and I'm here from Hamburg in Western Germany, and Union Pacific and Baltimore, Ohio. And I have a small basement layout. I don't know if you remember that from 3-4 months ago.
Yes.
50% storage area, 50% model railroad. So
outstanding. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Carl? Okay, B.O. Mike, I'm in Idaho. Okay, Carl is saying he's in Idaho. Daniel Rabel?
Hello, yes. Hi, I'm Daniel Rabel, and I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I model the nickel plate mainly, and do a lot of scratch building and 3D modeling and printing. In fact, I just finished up the Cleveland Union Terminal catenary towers.
Wow, we need to talk to you. That's great. All right, thank you very much for joining us. We will have some time, hopefully, for a little back and forth at the end of the program for those people who are able to stay. We always start by working with news you can use, and we start by briefing people on upcoming events. And the guy who has the biggest handle on news you can use is usually Dan Dawdy. Did Dan pop off? I don't see him.
No, I'm here.
Oh, here you are. Okay. Do you have anything you want to pass along by way of general news or more focused news?
Yeah, is it possible to share my screen?
Please.
Can I do that? Oh, I guess I can.
You should be able to set up that way. Whoop.
All right, well, there's a plug anyway, huh? So we're between magazines. The O-Scale, just came out last month. The next one will be out at the end of February, but just looking at stuff here, you can see that All Nation had a beautiful ad with us last time, and he's trying to get people to order things that he can deliver in Chicago. Save yourself some shipping. So there's all kinds of stuff there. Of course, the March meet's coming. I'll be there. Of course, I think most of us will be there.
Yeah, we're gonna hear from Mike Slater in some detail about what's going on with Chicago.
Next show is going to be the O-Scale South show in Atlanta. So that's something else to look forward to. As far as news you can use, if you read last magazine, you saw most of this, but just real quickly, Lou from Central Locomotive Works is thinking about doing an SD40, SD45. And I think Brad Cole is the one that's really helping him, or I should say pushing him, but helping him on this project. Lou does not have a website yet. I keep harping on him to let me build one for him, but he's just too busy, so you'll have to get a hold of him on email. But this would be a fully brass custom built SD45 or SD40-2, which I think we really need. Dylan Lambert, if you can see his cars, if he'll be in Chicago, I hope. He's got the G39 and G38 hoppers. If he's doing these the same way, and maybe David can shed some light on this, he's prototyping these here, but they're being printed in China. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah. And the passenger car he did was pretty well received, and these pilot models look really nice. So it's something else to look forward to. And then as long as Dave is here, we'll plug his new Crown trucks. He sent me a pair for review, and we've never done reviews in the magazine, only because I don't have the expertise, and B, if you remember back in the day when Milo Rarer used to do reviews, it was always who had the biggest ad got the best review. I don't want to get involved in that nonsense. But I played with them. I put them on a car. What I really like about these, I mean, it's $37. You get Intermountain wheels. And if you look at the casting, the printing, everything is sharp and clean. And what I really like is the pattern on the side. I don't know if that was done intentionally or it just happened, but it looks like a casting. You look at some of the Athearn and Intermountain trucks, they're all black and shiny, but these things are cast in the real world. And this really, really looks nice. It's a great truck, and I'm glad to see it come to market.
But before you move on, the one problem with the photograph is there are separate journal box lids. And on the photograph, the model that's there hasn't had the journal box lids installed. Other than that, you nailed it, Dan, in terms of...
Well, you didn't send them they weren't in the box.
Okay, we can talk about that later. I think.
Okay, I'm sorry. If they would have been there, I would have put them in. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
pretend there's something there. Atlas, well, Atlas isn't doing a whole lot right now. They got a couple of sanding towers, which are very specific for the Long Island and MTA, but you could probably re-letter them. Roger Lewis, of course, has got his California Zephyr, one more run of those, and that's nearing completion, and you can get a hold of Roger at his website. What's news coming up in the next issue? I don't think this will pertain to a lot of us, but there's a French company coming out with a 060T. It's 1 to 43 5 scale, so it's an English scale, but it's going to be a gorgeous model. I've seen some of his work before, and it's really, really good. So that's something to look for. And BendTheIrons.com, never heard of them. They sent me a press release on their new replacement chassis for Weaver RS 3s and GP 38-2. So if you want a custom cut chassis for those, which is going to give you obviously a lot more strength, that's something to look at. And that's about it.
Thank you, Dan. And a plug, by the way, I think, I think this is really a wonderful feature from O-Scale Resource. And that is you click on an ad and you get a link to the website. So it is not simply a print magazine. It is a print magazine with a link to each advertiser's website. And I think that's really cool. And it ought to be good for both the modeler and the companies that are producing stuff for Two Rail Out. So thank you, Dan.
It makes it very easy to spend your money.
Thank you. We want to talk about upcoming O-Scale events, and there are a number of O-Scale events that we need to take note of. The details on all of these are found, as I indicated, both on the O-Scale Central website, oscalecentral.com, and on the O-Scale resource list as well. It's in every issue. But we've got Southern O-Scale coming up in Atlanta at the end of February. We've got the March meet, and we're going to come back to that because Mike Slater and Brad Kowal from Chicago are here. We've got in April 6th an O-Scale show in Harrisburg, PA. Al Judy is doing a very good job of developing that show. Every show is a bit better. And that's on April 6th. On April 13th, the Strasburg show in Pennsylvania is coming up. And on May 24, 25, and 26, O-Scale West in Santa Clara, California. Take a look on the coming events, wherever you pick up your coming events from, and consider going to and supporting those shows. As we know, the mother church for O-Scale Two Rail is the Chicago March Meet, and it is coming up, and every year it adds a few more features and gets better. And I don't know how Mike Slater and Brad Kowal want to divide up the presentation, but I'd like you guys to tell us all about what's going to happen at March Meet and why everybody should put everything else aside, shovel your car out, and head for Lombard, Illinois.
I can just cover the clinics real quick, and then I'll let Brad cover the other portions of it. But we have 3 great clinics slotted here now. If anybody has wants to do the Proto 48 O-Scale Facebook group or the OGR forum, or I think there's also another O-Scale discussion that was typically held earlier on Friday evening. If you're going to have any of those discussions, please contact me either at the March Meet email that's on the marchmeet.net thing, or you can also contact me via my personal email, which is mslater@wi.rr.com. Either of those email addresses will work great. I just want to make sure I get time slotted in that, but we have Sarah, and that might be, we have to figure out exactly how it's going to be done. If it's going to be probably a panel of different O-Scale 3D printers in it and designers. We have a gentleman that is a professional structure model builder that's going to talk about a project that he worked at for a museum display. Even though it's the display was done in N scale, there's a lot of great modeling information in that clinic, and it might put a little peer pressure underneath us O scalers to do a better job on our modeling after you see that clinic. And then the third clinic will be on doing a small O scale layout. I believe switching layout in a small space in it, so you don't need a lot of space to play with O. So I'll hand it over to Brad.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Hello?
Hello, Brad?
Yes,
Hi.
Brad, I think you're muted.
There we
we
go. I should be on now.
Yeah.
Again, I'm Brad Cole, the director of the March O Scale Meet. And many of us know what the March O Scale Meet is, but for those that don't, this might be the largest O Scale Meet in the country. We've got a large ballroom, 20,000 square feet, and 350 tables available for us for trading as well as model contest, etc. Right now, we've got a website. It's marchmeet.net, and our layout tour schedule is up. I believe it to be complete at this time, unless we have a late edition. We also have model contest information up that Dan Dawdy put together and put up. And we strongly encourage people to finish that model on your workbench and bring it to the meet and add it to the contest. The contest is always more fun when we have lots of entries. And if there aren't a lot of entries, sometimes it's not worth the time and the space. And we definitely would like to be worth the effort. I think lots of participation, a lot more interest also helps us to get our other projects going when we see what other people are working on. Our general schedule and the clinic/meeting schedule will be up shortly. As Mike is talking, we are looking for moderators for both the Proto 48 clinic discussion, as well as the general discussion meetings that are normally held on Friday evenings.
I believe David Vaughn said that he was going to do the Proto 48, so that one was slotted at just the general O scale.
Okay. Good deal. I have reached out to Roger Lewis, haven't been able to get in touch with him. I think it would be neat to have him moderate the general meeting. He can mention, what's going on with his project and go from there. But again, I haven't heard back from him, so I don't know if he'll be available. We've also got a guided tour again at IRM. We'll have to get that up on the website shortly, but I talked to Nick Callis. He's willing to do that again. Very successful last year, although it was cold. So again, it's going to be at 1:00 p.m. People meet at the IRM grounds at the office, and Nick will take everybody around to various buildings that people normally don't get to see. But dress warm this year. The people that attended last year all enjoyed it, but they all froze their butts off. So, dress warm. We have a lot of newer people getting into O scale, or at least showing an interest based on the Ken Burney's Facebook group, as well as new people we see registering for the meet. So I think what we need to do to keep this thing successful and going is to reach out to people and make sure they know what this is. A lot of people might think it's just a regular train show, which it isn't, but we need to convey the idea that it's much more than that, and they need to know why they want to be there. As far as the figures, everything is looking positive. Registration is up 27% over the same date last year. Table sales are up about 51% over the same date last year, and hotel room night reservations, that's up 13%. Things look good, but we still have about 51 more tables we need to sell, and quite a few more hotel rooms that need to be booked, so we can rest at ease and reduce the stress of running this thing. But other than that, are there any questions?
Yeah, I have one, Brad. How much effort has gone into contacting the local media to raise awareness so you get more traffic, more participation from people in the local Chicagoland area?
At this point, we haven't done any of that, and I don't think we're quite to the point where we want to do that. For those of us that are into O scale, there's plenty of us for us to see and do, talk to people that we talk to on a yearly basis. For somebody that's in a different scale, or maybe not into trains at all, we don't have much to offer, because mainly when you walk into the ballroom, it's like a big flea market. Moving forward, we would like to have a couple more operating displays. We have Skylar Shippey's layout on display again this year. First time was last year. And we'd like to build a small switching layout that would be interactive. So if somebody shows up, you hand them a throttle and have them operate a train. They can see how nice O-scale operates, etc. Until we have a couple more layouts, I don't think we're in a position to do that, but definitely that's something that we want to do in the near future.
I would say probably the greatest aspect you could do is promote the shows on social media. You know, if you have a small O-scale group in your area, that, you know, promote the shows, because, you know, we sometimes can't think of everything in that. So the general O-scale help in that is a great thing. And the other thing might be, and I'll probably get chastised for saying this, but you know, welcome the 3-rail O-scalers, you know, or the guys that are doing everything to scale except for having that middle rail. I talking with a friend of mine that's thinking about doing a 3-rail scale switching layout, and putting KD couplers on all of his equipment, but just sticking with that 3rd rail down the center just because of cost of equipment as far as motor power for what he wants to do. And he doesn't want to do the conversion to 2-rail. You know, I think those guys should be encouraged to attend, because, you know, they're going to be buying freight cars that will run on 3-rail scale, and who knows, maybe eventually after a point in time you'll convert them to 2-rail. I know a good friend of mine that was 3-rail scale, and when he moved out of his house to a condo, he went true 2-rail when he had to build a new layout and that. So and there's a lot of 3-railers that do attend the show that are going there to buy the details, buy the structures, and for their layouts and that.
Definitely. I think moving forward, we do want to be able to have something to show people that come in from HO, as well as the 3-railers and everybody else. And I think the layout tours help with that as well. I know Ted Schnuff's a big help with that. Just the size of his layout, it's a big draw. People see that, and it gets them thinking about O-scale 2-rail.
I think Brad and Mike and their committee have done a great job. They took this show from a standing start after the Hill family had it for a long time. They built it up. They survived COVID, and at this point, they are slowly adding features to it. The model contest, the clinics, that we have been supporting them as O-scale Central, and we will have, as we did last year, a social hour on Saturday, a social evening, I should say, on Saturday, at which people will have a built-in opportunity to socialize a little better. You know, as we say, sinners belong in church, and O-scalers belong in Chicago. So appreciate what you guys are doing. We all need to talk it up, get your friends to come, and take a look, because more information will be coming up at marchmeet.net in terms of the meetings. There will be an O-scale Central meeting there, by the way, and O-scale Central has been very well supported by the show and the committee. So we thank you all for the work you're doing.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right. We need to flag the upcoming show schedule for O-scale Central online. And Greg, do you have some information about that? Do you want to pass along schedule that people should have gotten with your last invite here?
Yeah, so next month, February 18th, we're looking to finalize the program with that, and possible layout tour with my neighbor Bernie Kopinski here in Alexandria, Virginia. His layout is a unique Civil War era operating military railroad by the north. And then also Al Judy will possibly give an update on his activities, and also with the narrow gauge work that he's doing. And then we're also trying to line up somebody to do a program on layout photography, and then David will do the second installment of estate planning. Then we have a meeting on March 10th and April 21st and May 19th with those programs or presentations still being decided. Also, I'd like to take the opportunity to let everybody know that I'm working with Dan Dawdy on establishing the CAD catalog, and we're starting to populate that part of the O-Scale Central website with models, but we haven't made it public yet because we'd like to work with the organization's attorney to make sure that we have the website's terms and conditions updated for using these models, and just specify proper use of, or proper attribution of those items to download. That's about it, David.
Thank you. And let me not only thank Greg for the work that he has been doing, but also to solicit people who are on the program here for some additional help. It takes money to and time and focus to make these programs work. And Greg and I are both up to about here in terms of our ability to do this. So we need some help. If anybody is able to volunteer or has some questions that might lead to that, I think the best thing to do would probably be to reach out to Greg directly. And it's greg.vigiano@gmail.com, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I'll put that also in the chat for people to contact me with any kind of program ideas or how to get more involved in what we're doing to promote the scale.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much, Greg. I always say that O-Scale 2-rail is the best kept secret in model railroading. And I'm pleased that there are some efforts to blow my cover on this. For those of you who are not already plugged in, we managed to score both Railroad Model Craftsman in the January issue with John Sethian's O-Scale 2-rail layout as the cover story. And in Model Railroader, we got the February issue with Ed Rapé's beautiful O-Scale 2-rail layout. So if you don't regularly get those magazines, you might want to look at them. If you've got modelers from other scales who are on the fence, they're very well done articles and very well done layouts. And in fact, Ed Rapé has agreed to be on O-Scale Central online sometime later in the year, probably May or June. I'm pleased to say that he has done a great job and can really tell a great story about his layout. Greg, you want to introduce our first feature
Sure.
Donation.
John Wubbel is up next. He is the proprietor of All Nation Model Railroading Company, and has taken it over a few years ago and has quite a product line in reviving the brand. John, are you ready?
Mute myself here.
There you are.
Yeah, thank you, Greg, and everybody for inviting me. Is it possible to share the screen here? I know Dan did, so.
Yeah, on the bottom menu bar where it says share screen, just click that and then select which window you want to share.
Okay. I just got a couple of slides here that might
Yep, looks good, John.
be helpful to talk to. And if I can get it to go to a slideshow, it'll be easier. So can everybody see that?
Yep, looks great.
Well, best I can do is thank the help I've been getting. First off, my sisters have contributed a good deal to help revive the old brand. And Kathy has specialized in the parts, and it's keeping me straight because there's so many screws and washers and stuff that we had to really reorganize the database. And we've been working on this for about 3 years now. And my sister Loretta does a lot of the website upkeep, as Dan Dawdy knows, because sometimes we pester him for his support. And we're grateful for that huge plug he gives us in the magazine all the time when we have some additional product announcements to try to get the word out. And I think what we've been trying to do is to stay aligned with the same type of mission that O-Scale Central has. And when we get somebody new looking for parts or kit or wanting to upgrade their models, we always try to stick in a cover letter and promote O-Scale Central. And when there's a show like Strasbourg or even the March meet, we'll throw a flyer in the box or the envelope and get the word out that way. So that's our vision and our mission currently. And we have some goals, and we still probably got a good 2 years to go to get through everything that came from the Polk Family Trust 3 years ago. And it seems like every day we're finding the clues and getting the sub-assemblies and the parts together for various systems that used to be sold in the hobby shop in Chicago years ago. So we're trying to innovate new products as well to advance the hobby, and in so doing, try to interest new modelers with some, easy beginner kits and make those available where we think it's a relatively low cost way to get into the hobby and start building some modeling skills. We're supporting the original products as best we can. And like I say, we've enhanced our operations and the inventory system. So if somebody asks for an item and they're giving us the old catalog part number, we've stayed with that so we can put our finger on it quickly. And the new part numbers are assigned when we have something new to offer. So it's helped increase access to the products. And I can't tell you how many times people call me up and say, well, we got this old kit from eBay, but it's missing some parts. And it really does help them to get busy and build that out. and some of them have done some really fine work and allowed us to feature their work on the website. So we do quite a bit of networking in the community as well. And my son has chipped in a little bit on the social media end because I'm not finding the time really to devote to that as much as I would love to. And so he kind of keeps an eye on that for us a little bit on the side. He's quite busy himself. He's in grad school now, so he's helps out when he can. Of course, my wife, she does a lot of the running around, particularly on the shipping and getting stuff out to the post office or to UPS. So I'm trying, as I go through here, to remember to thank everybody who's helped me and a lot of the modelers that have come to us. Now, the business is about 100 years old, and we have documentation stating that it was established in 1923. And I've spent quite a bit of time this year researching it and documenting it to write a very comprehensive history on the company. And I know Glenn and Dan, Glenn Guerra and Dan have given me permission to use one of their articles that was published on Bob Colson. And I'm trying to get that all wrapped up, and we got to do some write-ups with when Bill Pope had the business and what he did. So hope to come out with that this year. Should be an interesting, very interesting read. And I've had a lot of comments and folks who have known worked with All Nations in the past verify some of this information. So as far as innovation goes, we're trying to bring out new beginner products, new 3D printed development work, particularly on special requests. And we're trying to do some instructional videos as we go along, because I think probably even in years past, instructions for kits could have been written up better, but today we have the luxury of doing clinics or videos, and even when we put a product out, have a good product description of how and maybe to assemble a kit, or at least one way to skin a cat when it comes to that. And that helps a lot of modelers. So we're also trying to revive some of the old kits and bring those back. We source parts that are in short supply. And one of the things we've tried to concentrate on recently is restoring a lot of the stamping dies that were used to produce parts like Z-braces, boxcar doors, boxcar ends, where they were stamped in brass or metal. We recently have been working closely with Marty Milner, who you know is probably well known at Scale City Design. And we've had a lot of the spin casting dies that came with the company. And as it turns out, Don Kyle, the previous owner of what Scale City had acquired from Don Kyle's wife, and Bill Pope had gone in and had purchased the O-scale for Walthers, and they worked together. And so a lot of the dies that Marty has are probably very close or similar to the spin casting dies that we have for producing detail parts. So we'll be working very closely with him on that in the future. He's taken some of our dies to see if their age affected their ability to create parts, but he says they're in pretty good shape, and he's testing them out for us as we speak. We tried to enhance our workspace and be a little bit more efficient around the office and get the supplies in that we need. The website continues to become developed and more mature, trying to get better photographs out there for for the modelers. And I think one of the things we've been able to do recently is start digitizing a lot of the old catalogs and blueprints and archive stuff that came with the business and get it in the hands of modelers. Not only because it's interesting, but if there's something out there that you want to build from scratch or model, it's very useful to have a good drawing, and they're not doing a heck of a lot of good sitting in our file cabinet drawer here. So we're going to try and get more and more of that out. We're trying to maximize our shipping efficiency so we can pass that on to the customers as well. That's, I think, for every business is always an ongoing effort to control that and keep it minimized cost-wise. And on the website, we have the modeler showcase. We have try to connect with a lot of modelers who just consistently send us photographs of a lot of their great work. So for 2024, we're going to have more of an emphasis on our transmissions and drives and motors. We're going to try to bring out a better capability for modelers to convert from 3-rail to 2-rail, particularly when it comes to their engines. We're going to have drives. We just recently came out with the drive the other day for doodlebugs, and we're going to have 2 versions of that drive, and we'll probably have one for an RDC, a Bud type car, and have the parts so that these are maintainable over time. Or if people have the old transmissions and they want to upgrade them or get them running again, we should be able to help them with that. We're going toward trying to bring on the site what modelers are asking for. So we're again partnering with people like Precision Scale to bring some of their scale detail stuff available. KD, their coupler and products, and just try to make it kind of a one-stop shop if you're looking for something. We'll continue to grow that. If you want to find our blueprints, drawings, and instructions, or a lot of old catalogs, we have that in a link called Cool Info. And we've done a little bit of putting content out there regarding paint, colors, and color palettes for model trains. And of course, we have the online catalog, which is a real-time PDF builder that is generated that can be downloaded. And so that's, where we're going with the business currently, and very open to taking any of your questions. And like Dan said, we will be coming to the Chicago March meet, providing we don't hit any bad snowstorms on the way, or we do, we'll maybe leave a day early. But we always look forward to that because we've enjoyed that show so much, and being able to go to layout tours in the Illinois Railway Museum, which I'm a member of. And many of you probably know Nick Callis. Well, he was a very good friend of my grandfather, and my grandfather used to take him to the Chicago Garfield Clarendon Model Railroad Club. Nick was just getting into model railroading, and he remembers my grandparents very well. And so we encourage you to get out there to see the museum if you haven't. Any questions?
John, I have a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
What is the most popular item that you sell in terms of your engines or other products available?
Uh, well, I would have to say probably two things. First, the parts are the biggest deal. Only because I think that their availability hadn't, for people to source those, it's very difficult for a long time to source parts. But I think one of our other areas has been the wood cabooses, and perhaps some of the traction stuff, believe it or not. And it seems very, very even across the board. There isn't exactly one thing that stands out where you tend to get a repeat over and over. So that's just kind of the nature of it currently.
Thanks, John. I have an NW2 switcher from All Nation, and I'm in the process of super detailing it. And one of the things I like most about that product is the weight of the die cast body, which I find to be, nicely accurate as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Glad we could help you, Greg.
And just a little side note, there's a lot of younger modelers or newer generation of modelers that are getting into traction modeling. So hopefully you might see the younger generation with that. And when you brought up the NW2, a little side note, before Lionel ever came out with their NW2, they used what is now your product line of the NW2 on their showroom layout to promote a product that they hadn't designed but wasn't ready yet.
Yeah.
So
General Models, I think.
Yep. So I because I'm also a Lionel collector, I took one of the General Models and painted it up like the NW2 that was on the showroom layout and that. So
yeah.
Which road name did they do for that?
Well, for the prototype one, it was kind of nicknamed kind of the ghost in it because it was painted white, and they had the Lionel lines on the side of the hood with the Lionel logo for that. But as far as their own product line, for what I would call the good quality NW2, it was Santa Fe and Chesapeake, Ohio, were the better one.
Thank you, Mike.
We've got a young O-scaler, name is Sam Deppis. He'll be at the March meet. He's going to be using two All Nation NW2s to kit bash an NW5 for Great Northern.
Thank you, Brad. Well, David, I think we're ready for your program.
All right.
Do you have your presentation ready?
I am going to figure out if I can do share screen. Let's see if it works. I blew my punchline on this. Okay, come on.
Yeah, I think you're sharing your screen. It looks good.
Right, except I, for some reason, cannot make it. Come on.
If you want to change slides, click on that slide and use your page up, page down button. There you go.
Okay, all right. Okay. This is a clinic that I put together to describe what I did with my layout, and it is unusual in my experience with most people start by building a layout. I started ultimately by collecting three vintage layouts, the most famous of which is John Armstrong's Canandaigua Southern, and I put them together in a single layout. And Some people collect Hudson's or dining car china or whatever. According to Great Model Railroads, I collect layouts. So my layout was featured in Great Model Railroads 2016. This is a photograph from that issue. It is taken on John Armstrong's Canandaigua Southern photographer's curve. This is an original John Armstrong locomotive, an original John Armstrong caboose. The scenery is the original scenery with some actual expansion of the kind of rock work that he did, because I needed more of the rock work that he had. And I would note that the Great Model Railroads issue that is on the right side of that screen is still available from Kalmbach. So if you're curious, there's a pretty good article written on the layout. So what I'm going to try and do, and this will be somewhat accelerated because the full clinic takes the better part of an hour. I'm going to try and shortcut some of it, but I'm going to tell you what I did, why I did it, how I did it, what the results were, the joys and pains of the project, the lessons learned, and I suppose ultimately the question, would I do it again? I grew up in the Midwest. I modeled New York Central and Ann Arbor Railroad in HO scale. I moved to Washington in 1975. I got tangled up with a round robin O-scale two-rail group led by John Armstrong, Ted Stepik, and Ed Rapé. I had modeled New York Central in HO, and I had about 75 brass engines, and I still didn't have a full representative NYC roster. A buddy of mine suggested nickel plate would have a far excuse me one second. Would have a far simpler roster, and I started doing that. I've been involved in a number of different O-scale activities and officer capacities and so on. I am tinkering with doing some of John Armstrong's projects with a little company called Wit and Wisdom Models. Our first project was John Armstrong's model of Nighthawks. Our second project is going to be a cementipede, a Imagineered articulated covered hopper that he did. I have a 12-inch to the foot passenger car restoration project that I'm working on now with former Nickel Plate Road, City of Chicago. In terms of the kind of questions that ultimately led me to the layout that I have, I went through a series of questions, of checklists, and they're generally applicable to anybody who might want to work with what I call a heritage layout. And it always starts, is the layout worth saving? Is there something special about it? Level of detail, quality of construction, specific components, whether it's a prototype building or feature, whether it's something that is highly compact in terms of the amount of work that went in, like an engine servicing facility. Is there sentimental value, a family, a friend, whatever? When you're making those determinations, do not assume that you will be able to save time or money by what you do. There obviously is some savings in terms of coming up with your bench work, your track work, your scenery, but there is a downside on that. The older layouts will have outdated materials. outdated structural and scenic techniques, obsolete wiring and technology, and potentially dangerous things, rusty rail, splinters, asbestos, and so on. If you combine multiple older layouts with newer parts, you got to worry about the fact that standards of track and standards of construction are going to require meshing them to get them to work together reliably. And there is always additional costs to cut up, move, and reinstall the layouts. So if you're interested in doing this, you got to start with a plan and where does the heritage layout or the components from that layout fit into the plan. Sometimes it's easier to just say, no, I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to use current components and I'm not going to participate. But there are, as we'll see, some real rewards in doing that. So the first step would be disassembling and moving the layout. Again, you have to have a track plan, an idea of where it's going to wind up before you start cutting it apart and moving it. You need to think this through, working harder. Working smarter, not harder. And you need to figure out where the components are going to fit in, maintaining the structural integrity of the pieces you cut apart, minimizing damage to track and wiring. You need to have pieces that are small enough to remove from their present location, and you need to have them small enough to move back into whatever the new location is going to be. I worked with 3 different layouts, all of which were well known not only in the Washington area, but had been magazines. Ted Stepik's Pennsylvania Railroad, Schuylkill Division. It was all hand-laid track, easemented, super elevated curves, flowing turnouts. I worked with Ed Rapé's Pennsylvania Railroad. I told you that he is the cover layout story and model railroader for February, but Ed had a prior layout that was good enough to be the cover layout and model railroader in March of 2000. When he moved away from Washington, he decided to start over again on what is now the absolute magnificent layout that is featured in February MR, and about which Ted is going to talk when he Ed is going to talk when he appears on O-Scale Central Online. So I acquired both of those, the Stepik layout from the family after Ted passed away, and Ed when he decided to do away with the compromises he had before. The third layout, and obviously the most famous, is the Canandaigua Southern. At the time, it, I think, was probably the best known layout in the hobby. He used it to develop and test his principles on layout design. He had 2 separate series of articles in Model Railroader that described the layout. This is a diagram of my layout. It requires a little bit of interpretation. Look down at the bottom panel first, and you will see about halfway to the right a brown, what is basically a workbench and utility room, and that everything to the left of that I call the front room. And this layout, this front room has the stepic layout, which we'll look at in a little more detail later. And my room was actually smaller and of a different shape than Ted's original layout. So I had to make it multi-level. If you look on the top panel, you will see an A, which ties into the A on the bottom panel. And that layout was originally self-contained in only the front room. And what I did was have two staging loops, one over the top of the other, that actually circled around the water heater that is in the workbench utility room. The right half of the layout is the back room, and for there are three major layers or levels. The first layout level is the lowest, and that is in the lower panel. And as you go from the front room into the back, you will see a turntable and roundhouse. That is the turntable and roundhouse off of John Armstrong's layout. To its right is the freight yard that John had, and to its right and in the back is the passenger terminal. As you go around the edge of that room, in the corner is the Warm River Depot on John's layout, which is modeled on Point of Rocks, Maryland. And then to the left of that, along the back wall in the lower panel, is Photographer's Curve. We saw a photograph of that later. It bends around and goes into a lower staging loop. I needed much more space for storing trains and having them work with a timetable coming on stage in sequence than I had, so I added more tracks. That said, the next level above the Canandaigua southern parts of the layout is in the center panel there, and the center panel ties into the upper level from the front room. So if you follow on around from A, all around on a level above the stepic yard and engine terminal, you go into the back room and you go in at a level above where the Armstrong components are, and you go around above and come into what we call Rapé Yard, which is based on Ed's abbreviated Enola Yard, and then up the approach from Enola up toward Horseshoe Curve, and that's where you see the arrows and the C in the middle of the center panel. It joins the upper level, which is on the top panel, and it goes around, and there is a multi-track staging area. And the lower staging loop down in the first panel at the bottom is at about 32 inches. The upper staging loop, which is on the top panel, is actually over your head. It's at about 80 inches. You walk underneath it. All of the levels are connected, and it takes about 35 or 40 minutes to go all the way around the layout. Now, what we're going to do next is look, and I don't want to focus too much on who Ted was, although he was a remarkable guy. But the layout in the lower right-hand corner is from one of John Armstrong's layout books. He designed the layout for Ted. It's interesting. It's in an almost square area, and other than the main yard, there is no straight track anywhere on the layout. It's all curved to make it fit. So it really used the space extremely efficiently. When I saved the first layout, the Stepik layout, and I want to look in the lower left-hand corner of this slide for a picture of Ted at his layout, and you can see the flowing nature of the track work. It was really beautiful and all hand laid. And that's one of those, you really don't want to put this out in the trash. I have in the upper left-hand corner the obligatory, before you start building a layout, you got to deal with the basics like drywall and wiring and insulation and ceiling tile and so on. And we did all of that. None of these layouts had ever been designed to be moved. They were anti-modular, and none of the components of the bench work were standardized. And so we did a lot of learning on the go in terms of how to make a layout non-standard, non-modular, fit in a more orderly fashion. And I had some very good people helping me. This is a guy named Rick Sester, who came out of the aerospace industry. And we took the non-standard bench work, stripped it off, stripped most of the wiring off, and then a technique learned from the aerospace industry, turned it upside down and put in new standardized bench work. I had spent a lot of my modeling career, and maybe you all have spent it in yours, upside down under the bench work, trying to avoid having molten solder trickle down my arm while I was doing wiring. You take this out, you turn it upside down, and you can avoid a lot of that. So we had some interesting techniques working with this otherwise outdated benchwork techniques. In the lower right hand, and obviously multi-level is necessary where you have as much layout as I have crammed into a small space, 18 foot by 90 feet long, which is how big the layout is. May sound big, but as you know from your own experience, there is O-scale layouts take a lot of room. And the lower, so I went to multi-level bench work, and I wanted to avoid the necessity of using constant bracing for the lower sections. So I affixed the layout sections that were in the upper parts of the multi-level layout to the wall, and then I suspended the front edge of the layouts using braided wire attached to the overhead roof studs through the acoustic ceiling. You can see the vertical wires there in the photograph. I later built telephone poles using hollow plastic tube with cross arms and scribed texture and paint to conceal those, and it works really, really well. Now, for Ted's layout, you can see in the red outlines the different components of the layout that I took. We'll come back to what the layout looks like. after the pieces have been put together. But each one of these was removed, salvaged, and put into place as part of the new layout. It's kind of interesting because when I did the article for Great Model Railroads, I got to it and they were very interested in the story. A very talented photographer named Paul Dolkos did the shoot, and we were all systems go. And they said, "Well, where's the track plan?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a track plan. I just took the component layouts, blew them all up to the same scale in an enlarging photocopier, cut off the various components into paper dolls, and then moved them around in a template of the space into which they were going to fit." And they were very kind about it. They said, "Okay, no track plan, no article." So I had to go ahead and backwards engineer a track plan, which a friend of mine, Bob Levesey, and I were able to do. But these are the components of the STEPIC layout. They were not in the same place as on Ted's layout, and some of them were trimmed and modified. The second layout was Ed Rapace, as I indicated. He's a Pennsy modeler, by the way, and his present layout, the one that's featured in next month's Model Railroader, is just stunning. This one had a number of compromises. His view of Horseshoe Curve only had 3 tracks, and it went the wrong way. I've forgotten whether it's west to east goes up or whatever, but whatever it was reversed. I could certainly live with it, but it made Ted crazy, so he decided to leave it behind and start anew. But when you look, that upper staging loop that I showed you that's up above your head is the lower right hand. The components going up the grade to past Horseshoe Curve are to the left of the upper staging loop. The lower staging loop is actually in the middle. That's before I added a bunch of tracks to it. And then I told you that Altoona and the yard are also included from Ed's layout. And finally, this was John Armstrong's layout. I suspect everybody knows who John Armstrong was. He actually altered the course of my work life. I could have been a star physicist, except that my physics class came after my high school study hall. And I found that if you worked reasonably well at concealing it in a notebook, you could have a copy of John Armstrong's track planning for realistic operation inside what looked like your physics homework notebook. There may be other people who've suffered similar kinds of career diversions, but that was mine. John's layout really was a landmark layout. A lot of the things that John did are now commonplace. The beyond the basement, where you see your own railroad as part of a larger system, designing in obstacles, doing it to standards by the square, being able to follow your train around, and so on. Looking on the front end at the grit givens and druthers about your layout. What do you have to deal with? That lolly column in the middle of the room, or the steps going up one side, the furnace that you got to navigate around. And what do you want to do? I want to operate big boys and 150 car trains. How do you harmonize those? And John walked people through how you do that. His layout, he was a federal civilian employee as an engineer, and he didn't make very much money. So a lot of the stuff that he did was really on on the budget. His turntable pit that I have is comprised of sheet metal from oil cans, and you can still see mobile oil on the outside of the turntable pit. But he used his own layout and the excellent writing and photography that he was able to do to develop these ideas and illustrate them. His layout was actually pretty small. That layout, which has a lot going on it, is only 24 by 36 feet. And we will see, I was able to use a lot of the components. As I indicated, that the top section is John's engine terminal and his freight yard and his passenger terminal. Since the Great Model Railroads article, I have used the next component in a mid-level edition. I won't try and cover all of that today, but the one below that with the water is the component of the layout that includes John's famous cosmetic 110-foot curve called Photographer's Curve. So when I started construction in 2001. The layout was open for the 2004 Scale O National Convention, which was held in Washington. At that point, I only had the front room and I only had the STEPIC layout. And I had always vowed that if I found the STEPIC layout fun to operate, but found it too small, that I would consider putting an extension on the basement. And fate conspired to make those decisions and moves quicker and more dramatic than I had anticipated. John Armstrong passed away. Ed Rapé moved, leaving his layout behind. As we all know, when an owner passes away or moves into assisted living or to a condo or whatever, the kids come in with limited amounts of time. They contact a real estate agent. The real estate agent goes through the house, goes down to the basement, and runs out of there screaming. The layout's got to go. That in fact did happen. We needed to move fairly quickly, and I made a determination to put an extension on the house. I was able to store the two layouts, the Rapé components and the Armstrong components, in a storage unit. I don't recommend that. It's a pain in the butt, and it takes time and costs money and invites damage to the layouts and so on. But I did in 2005, 2006, I dug out a 16-foot crawl space and put a 25-foot new basement with a conservatory on the top. I thought I was going to get a lot of credit with my wife for the conservatory, but she quickly figured out that the conservatory was just a way to keep the rain off the layout. So I didn't get any points for that. Digging out a crawl space underneath the basement is actually a little more complicated than you might think, because you got to figure out how not to have the house fall into the hole. So we had to get a structural engineer involved and figure out some false work to maintain the structural integrity of the house. Here are some interesting photographs. The top left is a photograph of John Armstrong, who actually was able to come out while the while the Stepik layout was being built. John actually liked Ted Stepik's layout. You remember the one with no straight track other than in the yard, better than his own layout. It was more sophisticated in design, and he was very pleased that it was not being put out in a dumpster the way so many of them are. I include the two photographs of the layout, the top right and the lower left, because they illustrate what it was like to disassemble the John Armstrong layout. And you will note, first of all, it really gave me great pause to take a Sawzall to the most famous layout, and certainly on O-scale at the time. And it also shows the rather crude, definitely non-modular layout construction that we had to contend with. Taking photographer's curve in half, as the lower left-hand photograph shows, was quite an experience. These things are bulky, and the lower right photograph shows a buddy of mine that I worked with who had a ton and a half truck that we put. So here we come back armed with some knowledge of where the components came from, and we look again at the layout. What we have is a 18-foot by 90-foot layout on multiple levels. In one area, there are as many as 5 levels. On the right-hand lower panel is the lower staging loop. On the right-hand upper panel, all the way at the top, is the upper staging loop, and everything is basically a dog bone with double track main and the upper staging and lower staging loops being the ends of the dog bone. From the middle of the layout left is the Stepik layout, and I use that and the upper level going from A to A into the back room and up as being nickel plate, and that's my favorite railroad. From the back of the front room forward, where you see the Armstrong components, that is actually Canandaigua Southern, and I try and operate it as John Armstrong would. I've been fortunate. I have 5 of John's original engines, as well as a lot of his passenger cars, and I operate it attempting to do it separately. John was not a big fan of his own freight car fleet, so when I inherited his layout and some of the rolling stock, I found almost nothing that I could use by way of freight cars, so I had custom decals done and figured out what Canandaigua Southern, a poor, dirty, eastern backwoods kind of railroad, would have done. So we have X29 box cars and dispatch shops, covered hoppers, and so on. So that's been fun, but that's has also been a lot of work. in connection with the 2018 Scale O National Convention, I was able to obtain permission from the Armstrong family to use Canandaigua Southern as a convention car. So we actually had Atlas do a special run of Canandaigua Southern boxcars. You will see some of those occasionally on eBay or at a show. So, is it worth it? Would I do it again? Well, first of all, I knew John Armstrong, I knew Ted Stepik, I know Ed Rapé, I know the level of craftsmanship that went into the construction of those layouts. I knew the historical significance. I knew that there were a lot of people who would be very happy to be able to see Canandaigua Southern preserved, and I've been very pleased to be able to do that. I've made a wonderful connection with the O-Scale community. I've had over 4,000 visitors. I try and make the layout available for open houses. When people contact me, I try and make it available for tours. And I've had, as I said, over 4,000 visitors through. They don't come to see me, but they certainly come to see John Armstrong's layout and perhaps some of the others as well. I can, if you have any of the connections we talked about in terms of extraordinarily high levels of craftsmanship, sentimental value, family or otherwise, by all means, you should consider preserving these layouts and making them available for future generations of modelers. We all stand on the shoulders of the modelers who went before us, and I think it's really neat to have been able to do that. Don't plan on saving time. Don't plan on saving money. Do plan on a lot of complications. The Armstrong layout was actually built to 1940s, early 1950s standard. Stepik was the 60s and 70s. Rapé's layout was the 80s and 90s. They all had a lot of differences, both in construction and in standards, and it took a lot to tweak them together. One of the special things that I've had happen to me is that the Armstrong family has taken an interest in the layout. So for the last 2 years, I have hosted over the holidays in conjunction with Armstrong family reunions up in Gettysburg, actual tours by the family of the Armstrong layout. So it's really cool to be able to, and they're now working on great-grandchildren. The three guys on the top right are John's three sons. The people on the bottom, I'm not sure where all of them fit together, but I think the little boy in the center is John Armstrong's great-grandson. So that's been really cool, and if you can obviously adapt whatever this would be to your own situation, but it really does make for some incredible connections, and it really helps with building and preserving an O-Scale two-rail community. So customarily, we have a caboose at the end of the presentation, and I want to thank you all for listening, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to handle them.
I have a question for you, David.
Yes.
70-inch for your upper level, how well does that work?
I'm sorry, what about the upper level? How well does it work?
The 70-inch height. On your diagram, it looks like it's 70 inches above the floor.
Well, the upper staging loop is actually about 80 inches above the floor on my layout. As I said, you walk under it. How does it work? It works pretty well, 98% of the time. Every once in a while, we will have a derailment. When we have the derailment will always be at the least accessible part on the layout. That's just, Murphy's Law. And it's no different. For me, but we have troubleshot it a lot, and derailments are unusual. They generally happen mostly when people come over for open houses, so I can operate the layout flawlessly for many hours. It's, occasionally the crap hits the fan, but most of the time it works well. Ed built it to good tolerances, did a good job, and I've tweaked it with the other guys that have worked on the layout with me.
Okay, good deal.
Hey, David, what is your favorite part of the layout?
I think you got to go with photographer's curve simply because it is so well known. Interestingly enough, my reconfiguration of the layout actually involved having about 10 feet more track on the photographer's curve area than John had. And I was trying to figure out, he used very distinctive scenery techniques with a palette knife and wet plaster and some very subtle coloring. And it's really quite convincing, but it would be incredibly difficult to duplicate. So I made rubber molds, and I had additional sections actually working from John's molds, from John's scenery, cast them in plaster, and did the usual thing you do with plaster casting. You turn it upside down, you take part of it, and so on. And then I had a fella who was working on the layout with me, whose wife was an artist, and she did the color blending. And it turned out well enough that it's very difficult to see where John's original layout ends and the new part of photographer's curve continues.
Thank you.
David, could you speak briefly to Lavezzi Junction?
Yes. I moved. Lavezzi Junction is where John Armstrong's model of the Point of Rock station comes together with the main line. And in the original Armstrong layout, the single track that goes past the station on the left was the main line. For me, that's a dummy. It goes into the wall, and the actual main line was like an ironing board dummy track on John's layout, and I basically did away with it and made it part of the main line. So things have been moved around a fair amount. They no longer fit together as they did with John. One of the funny things was John was a big proponent of Givens and Druthers and building his layouts by the square. So he would have rather precise standards in terms of his minimum radius and so on. I discovered when I was putting together the adaptation of the main line using John's dummy tracks that he cheated. His minimum radius there is not what he says his minimum radius on the railroad is. So I had to do a lot of whittling, and Bob Lavezzi, whom some of you may know, also had to do a lot of whittling to make it work. But John was faking it in his own standards. As far as I know, only on the dummy tracks that came off. If you get a chance, look at John's fact plan, and you'll see where this basically tracks to nowhere that he used for a little bit of off-scene staging show. Well, listen, I know this is a long presentation. It's certainly longer than the usual ones that we try and do on the show, and I appreciate your
David, one last
patience.
question. Do you know if John Armstrong, I mean, he wrote a lot, and he wrote several books and manuals. Did he have a favorite that he was most proud of?
A favorite book?
Yeah.
Let me answer that two ways. One is there is a layout. There's a book called Custom Plans. I don't remember the exact title, but it is by Kalmbach. And in the first couple of chapters of that, he really summarizes in great detail and with great clarity his design process, his by the standards, his Givens and Druthers, his trying to figure out what you want to do with the layout in ways that go beyond the basement and so on. And it is in one place. And it's very well written. I really like it. It's probably the most compact of his writing that I've seen. He also did an oddball book. There was a company called Tab Books, T-A-B. And if you are remembering this far back, we used to in school get like newspapers on a weekly basis called Junior Scholastic and Senior Scholastic, and Tab Books was the book division of that company, of Scholastic Press. They decided they wanted him to write a book, and what they said was, we need, and I've forgotten the exact page number, we need 256 pages, put in it whatever you want. And they didn't give him a budget, and they didn't give him any design assistance. So what he did was basically handwrite the book and hand draw the various track plans and the examples of operating conditions and so on. And it's basically just looking, and John, of course, was an engineer and a very good draftsman. So it's well done, but it almost looks like you are looking at the pen of John Armstrong. And when he puts it to the paper, his ideas just come out on the page.
What year was that?
I'm sorry?
What year was that?
I don't know, in the 70s or 80s, not later than that. You can still get it on Amazon or any place you go for your model railroad books and magazines. And I think it's called something clever like model railroad track planning or track planning and design. It is a yellow cover. It is only available in softbound. They printed it on really poor quality paper. So the present condition of the books that you'll buy actually have a little bit of a brownish or faded tint, but it is a great book because it is straight from John Armstrong's mind onto the page. Those would be my favorites. He wrote 5 books for Kalmbach. Track Planning for Realistic Operation is certainly the best known. It is in its 3rd edition, and I believe it is still in print. It was last time I looked. The others are not. And John wrote a great deal. If you look on any of the indices for model railroader and other model railroading magazines, he has something like 450 topics on the model railroader index alone. He did custom track plans as well, and sometimes you will see those surface, or you may know somebody that used one. That really is a topic for another time, but that whole process is fascinating. I'm very pleased to have had the full cooperation of the Armstrong family. And in fact, I have John's project notes, photographs, drawings. I have a bunch of his custom track plans, and I have his slides from his prototype ventures, which were considerable. And that's where I got the plans for both the Nighthawks Cafe and for the Cementipede, which we now have under development.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate your patience and attention. That finishes our planned part of the program. Thank you. It's John Armstrong on creative layout design. Thanks to Ken Nesper for the exact title of the book. I would like to close with 2 things. One, to get from Greg a reminder on our next program. You have that handy?
Yeah, that is going to be February 18th. And hopefully with Bernie Kopinski and his Civil War layout, Al Judy on narrow gauge, and then layout photography and estate planning.
Great. And when you get your invitation, which you should have gotten in one of 2 ways. One of them is through Dan Dawdy's mailing list for O-Scale Resource, and the second is for O-Scale Central members. When you received your invitation to this program, you should also have received a list of the dates for the remaining months of this year. And if things are working right, both the Zoom meeting ID and the one-click link should be the same for each and all of the programs. So if you get your calendar out and put it on the February 18 and the other Sunday afternoons that we're doing this on, you should be set through the month of June. And we are looking forward to that. We are also going to be placing the O-Scale Central online programs on our oscalecentral.com website. So you should be able to go there and get the meeting dates and figure out how to get in. These programs are recorded and they are made available for either looking at them again if you want to, or if you know people who missed them, you can also click on the links also through oscalecentral.com. I got nothing else. Even for a lawyer, I am talked out. But it has been our practice in the last several meetings to leave the meeting open for a while. A lot of us O-Scalers do our hobby in solitary. Nobody's necessarily close to us. And sometimes a good bullshooting opportunity is something that we should make available. So to the extent that people want to stay on, to make announcements, to have questions, to get in conversations with each other, we will stay online to do it.
Thank you.